Hey y'all, it's your girl Diamond and welcome back to my channel, Diamond's Open Diary. On today's video, I just wanted to come on here and talk about the subject of grief and how most definitely grief is ghetto. Grief is something that all of us unfortunately are gonna have to experience in this lifetime, whether that be grieving someone who has passed away, grieving the loss of a friendship, or grieving the loss of a job, or something that you hold near and dear to you that you have to release or let go of. Something or a person, I should say. So this month of February, happy Black History Month. Okay, get that out the way, because you know it's always gonna be Black History Month, okay? February is my late grandmother's birthday, my mom's mom. And then yesterday was the 2-year anniversary of my dad's passing. My grandmother passed away in 2022. My dad passed away in 2023. So both of them passing so quickly, one after the other, was very much hard for me, and as well as like my siblings, because we didn't really get to fully grieve this year without my grandma, and then our father passed away so unexpectedly. And then in 2019, a few days after my birthday, my grandfather passed away, my grandma's husband. This was my mom's second dad. And so since 2019, death has just kind of hit very, very, very close to home. I understand death is inevitable and we all have to have that journey one day when life is over. I get that. But those 3 people not being here just does not sit right with me in my spirit. Like, you know how you just have people, you're like, you're supposed to be here forever. And it's like, with grandparents, we forget that when we get older, they're getting older. And I know a lot of us don't want to talk about, oh, I can't even think about that person not being here, and I can't even think about it, I don't want to think about it. And like, you don't have to think about it all the time, but it also doesn't help if you are denying the inevitable. And I feel like that's kind of what I've been doing since my grandfather passed away back in 2019. So the reason I want to talk about grief was, you know, I just mentioned that my dad has been gone for 2 years, and what really hit hard with his death was, and I'm just going to be completely honest, we were not on the best terms a few years ago. So it hits hard this time around for my dad's passing because a lot of things have just been stirred up. And one of those things would be a year prior to him passing, we got back on good terms. When I say we, I mean him, me, and my siblings. Like, we got back on good terms with him. And he was very stubborn. Like, if you knew my dad, you knew he was stubborn. He was, you know, all about, you know, he gonna say what he gotta say, and it don't matter what you gonna say about it. In the beginning of 2022, so right before my grandma passed away, because she passed away in May of 22. So in January of 22, he was rushed to the hospital, said he had congestive heart failure, had to get emergency surgery, put stents in. And after that, me and my sister were living in Tennessee at the time, so we traveled to Alabama. We see him, and it was just kind of like, okay. We didn't really know how to navigate because he wasn't fully understanding, like, hey, we're trying to be there for you, but there's still some unresolved feelings, right? And so after that, we started communicating more, and then he did reach out to us and apologized. And we got back on better terms with him. And the week before he died, he called us, and we were talking because from Alabama, so we were gonna go to Mardi Gras, Mobile, birthplace on Mardi Gras. But we were getting ready to go to Mardi Gras, like in a couple weeks. And we were gonna see him, like we were gonna stop by, we were gonna talk, like we were like actually happy to be able to see him because we hadn't seen him in a year, you know? And it's just crazy because life just be lifing, and life happens in so many interesting ways. So the week prior to him passing, we were talking, we were chopping it up. He asked me when I was gonna give him a grandchild because my sister already has a child. And I was like, sorry, what? Like, that's a lot. You asking for a lot. And, you know, just laughing or whatever. And I was really happy because I was just like, okay, like, we're finally getting to a better place in our relationship. Like, finally, like, we can really, like, go into, like, our healing phase and, like, deeper into the healing phase, you know, and just kind of have a better relationship. And unfortunately, we did not get to see him because a week later, I was on my way to the gym to go work out, and my mom calls me and she tells me that he passed. And at that moment, I was driving, so I was literally just an exit from my house. So I turned around, went back to my house, and I just sat in the driveway. And I think I sat in that driveway for about an hour. And during that hour, I was just I was texting my manager at work like, hey, just found out my dad passed. I don't know when I'll be back to work, but I have to go make these arrangements. And then I remember texting my friend group. I texted my best friend. I texted my friends in Tennessee. And I was just telling them, hey, just found this out, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, everybody's texting me like, oh my God, what do you need? What do you need? I'm like, honestly, I don't know. Like, I don't know. Everybody's asking me, am I okay? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if I'm okay. And it was at that moment, I just kind of felt like the grief hadn't really set in yet. Because I was in just a state of mind of just, this isn't happening, this isn't real. It's definitely been a hard adjustment because my dad was young. He was 47 when he died. So he wasn't even to 50. And when you lose a parent before you think you're supposed to lose them, it kind of hits different. And it doesn't, you know, hurt any less or like hurt any more than like losing a parent, I should say, overall. But it definitely makes you evaluate life a little differently. From that point on, I just made it a point to give myself the space and the time to grieve. And for the whole month of February of 23, I think I worked maybe no more than like 6 days, and those weren't even consecutive. Because when we went down to make his arrangements, we were in Alabama for like another 3-4 days. And that was hard in itself because as his kids, we were responsible for making arrangements, and thankful to people who helped us pay for these arrangements, and thankful to the people who were supporting us during this time, because it was a point in time to where we kind of felt like people were not being as supportive as they could have been. And not saying that they owed us anything, but it's just kind of like, if you are family or you care about us, you would have at least been there for us, you know? Anyways, but a few things I just want to touch on this video. I did not mean for it to be this long. I just had to speak from my heart and speak what was on my mind, because this is a very, very heavy discussion, and grief is heavy. It's not just, oh, you sad one day and then the next day it's okay. No, like, so many things can trigger a memory of somebody. Like, for instance, like I have this face mask with Alabama on it, and my grandma was an Alabama fan, Roll Tide all the time. And I just remember it was one of her face masks, and I remember when she passed, I got some of her stuff, and I just held onto the face mask, and I never washed it. Like, I didn't want to get rid of the smell. Like, she smelled cigarettes, so it smelled like smoke, but it also smelled like her. And so when that smell finally faded, I was really sad, because I was just like, dang, like, I'm losing this piece of her I had. But I also have a pair of her socks that she had too. So don't judge me. Like, don't judge. We listen and we don't judge. That's what this platform is all about, okay? Even when my granddaddy passed away in 2019, I got one of his Alabama caps. When my granddad passed away, he was in the hospital, and I saw him on my birthday that year. My mom's biological father. We were at church, and then he drove me to the hospital where my granddad was, and I said my goodbye. I kissed him on the forehead and immediately walked out of the ICU room. My mom said all they saw was a blue blur. I had on a blue dress. Okay, and I just cried in the hallway because I just could not fathom that I'm saying goodbye to you. Like, I've known you all my life. I've seen you all my life. I don't know my life without you in it. So that was the first close death that just was kind of like, oh, so this death shit is real. Like, this is real. When my grandma passed away, my mom had basically called us and said, prepare for the worst, because it's not looking good for her. And she literally called us, like, I'll say, it's not the exact time, but I'll say like at 12. At 2 o'clock, she calls back and says that she didn't make it. And I just remember I was pacing up and down the driveway. I was going down the sidewalk in front of the house. Like, I was just like, nope, I'm not believing this. Like, I don't want to believe it. Denial was very strong in the first beginning stages. I realized with me, like, I deny first. I deny it. I'm gonna deny it. I'm gonna deny it. And that's actually the first stage of grief is denial. And I remember just texting my best friend, calling her. Well, she called me back, and I just started screaming, crying. And then I went to the store and I got some wine. Now, alcohol is not a way to solve your problems. I'm just telling you what I did in that moment, because I was like, I need to get out the house. I need to go take a drive. And then one of my friends from Alabama calls me, and I tell her, yeah, my grandma passed away. And she was like, oh, when did she pass? I was like, oh, about 2 hours ago. And she was like, are you okay, Diamond? And I was just like, ask me that in like another day or two, because the shock was still there. And I honestly I just could not process it. Like, it was not real to me. But me and my sister, we had a glass of wine. We watched some of Madea plays. That was our coping mechanism. Matter of fact, Medea's Christmas play, we literally watched that when my grandma died and when my dad died, because we were just like, you know what? We need to pick me up. And that's one of our favorite Tyler Perry plays. So shout out to you, Tyler Perry. You helped us get through some dark times. Okay, so y'all see my little book right here. I did ask on my other social medias some topics or some things to touch on when talking about grief, so I'm just gonna go through those. And feel free to comment down below if you guys resonate with any of this, and just if you want to share your personal experience in a summarization in the comments, feel free to do that as well. Like, I would love to read those. The first one that I got was just a statement on grief as a whole. Grief is not a destination, but a journey, and it's okay not to be okay. Which is very true, because when you're grieving, it's not just, oh, the person died, I'm sad. We have the funeral or the memorial service, and then it's done. Like, you're gonna be grieving forever. No matter how much time has passed, like, it is just, that's just the concept of it. You are gonna have those moments of something triggering in grief, whether it be a song, whether it be a smell, whether it be a place. Like, something's gonna trigger the grief, and it's okay. And I just want people to get out of the mindset of, oh, like, you shouldn't still be upset. No, please don't ever tell somebody that. If you fix your mouth to tell somebody they should not be upset over somebody who has died, I'm gonna need you to exit stage left, because that's horrible to say to somebody. That is so insensitive to say, because it is absolutely okay for somebody not to be okay. It doesn't make them less of a person. It doesn't make them any less strong of a person. It takes real strength to admit, I am not okay in this moment, and I'm going to need to go to some grief counseling, or I'm going to need to go to therapy, or I probably need to get on some type of medicine to help me. It is absolutely okay not to be okay. I really want you guys to know that it is okay. And don't let anybody try to tell you that it's not okay for you to admit that, okay, I'm struggling with this. Because you should. That's where real strength lies. I do have a couple questions here. Does grief affect your life? Grief does affect your life, because in some ways it will be difficult for you to kind of press on. Ooh, sorry, I'm gonna lash in my eye. But it's hard to kind of press on when it's still fresh. And I say that because even though it's been 2 years since my dad passed away, it feels like yesterday. It feels like this just happened. And I know it's only been 2 years, and I have to keep reminding myself that, like, girl, it's only been 2 years. Like, it's still a fresh wound. And it does affect your life, because in certain moments I find myself like I can't watch certain things anymore. If it's like a scene with a father and a daughter, or an estranged relationship between a father and their child, and they mended, or, you know, they have a good relationship, or anything like that. Like, sometimes some of my best comfort shows I watch, certain episodes I can't watch because it's going to trigger me. And I can acknowledge that. So to answer that question, yes, grief does affect your life in some way. Don't let it consume you, because letting grief consume you will mess you up in a lot of different ways. And it's important to realize that it's okay to grieve, but just don't let it consume you to the point to where you forget that you're still living, if that makes sense. How to proceed or cope with grief is the next question. I feel like in order to cope with it, or like go on with life with it, is to accept it, to sit in it, not stay in it, but just sit in it. Like, don't feel like you have to put a time limit on your grief. This is not a bad breakup in a relationship. This is somebody dying, and you will not see that person again on this side. You will not hear them talking. You will not see them physically. So I would say, in order to cope with it, just kind of make sure that you are, one, coping in healthy ways. Like, I know y'all heard me talk about getting a bottle of wine. I did, but I just want to reiterate, like, alcohol is not the way to solve your problems. Neither is drugs. Like, that's not a way to solve it, and it's not gonna bring the person back. But find healthy ways to cope with it. One of the ways I cope with losing my grandfather back in 2019 was I had therapy, and I was going to therapy when I was in college. So that was definitely a really good tool for me. I also was singing and posting videos on YouTube years ago, and I was just trying to make peace with my emotions where they were. And I was very patient with myself, because as the years went on, like, even when my grandma passed away, I made sure to be patient with myself and understand that, hey, you are dealing with something that you've never dealt with before, and you have to navigate this in the best way that you can. So I would definitely say, in order to cope with it, sit in it. Don't try to fast forward it. Don't try to completely like control alt delete it. Like, that's not gonna work. You have to be in that moment, acknowledge your feelings, acknowledge how it's making you feel, whether that be sad, angry, hurt, like just frustrated, whatever the emotion that you're feeling. You have to acknowledge that in order to be able to start your healing, to go through it. I'm not gonna say move on from it, because you will never be able to move on past somebody passing away, but just being able to move along, I'll say, and to be able to go through it, to get to the other side of grief, which is the healing. So what are the stages of grief? So grief has 5 stages. There is denial, there is anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. So just a little summarization of each stage. Denial, you're like, nope, I'm not gonna accept this. That was literally me. Like, I hit denial very quickly with all 3 deaths. I was just like, nope, y'all lying. I don't wanna do it. I'm not gonna believe it. But then it's like, girl, you can deny all you want to. They still, not here. And I had to come to terms with that, because I'm just like, okay, like, I guess I gotta, acknowledge this. I'm still like not accepting it, but I'm just gonna acknowledge it or whatever. And then you have anger. I would say the angry stage of grief was very heavy when my dad passed away, because there was a lot of stuff that me and my siblings kind of had to navigate through when planning his service. And baby, when I tell you, I was ready to turn up on a whole bunch of people, but I was like, you know what, even though I want to turn up on y'all, and even though y'all pissing me off right now, I ain't gonna do it, because I got stuff to handle. I got stuff to do. Like, we got stuff to do, and we gotta handle this. And I just kind of feel like with anger, you gotta feel it too, okay? Like, it don't matter if you as sweet as can be and you don't cuss, you don't even get mad at people like that, baby, you gonna feel that anger. And when it happens, you need to accept that too. And you gonna have to face the fact that, yeah, you are angry. You could be angry at people around you for how they're acting, because I'm gonna say this, death brings out a lot of different sides of people, and that can be good or it can be bad. But just know, death will bring out those sides of people. And that's all I'm gonna say. But back to the anger. You just have to acknowledge that. And sometimes you're gonna be angry at God. I was definitely hurt in the anger. When my grandparents died, I'm like, man, like, I prayed for them to get better. Like, we thought they were gonna get better, and it's just like, they died. Like, what? Like, are you serious right now? Like, Lord, like, you supposed to be a healer, and you were supposed to heal them. Like, why you ain't heal them? But then something that I learned when my grandma passed away was, we pray for healing for people, but we don't understand or realize that their healing may not happen on this side. Like, it may not happen while they're physically still here. And if you're somebody who believes in God and believes in heaven, then, they got their healing in heaven. And as a believer, I had to make peace in that kind of realm with it, but I was still hurt. I was still angry. I was just like, what? Like, nah, you playing with me right now. And then the next stage is bargaining. The bargaining is just kind of like, you're just kind of pleading, like, okay, God, like, but I thought that, if they went to the hospital in time, or I thought that, if we made peace with each other, then, it was all gonna be okay. And when it comes to bargaining, that's just something that it makes you question things. And if you're a believer or you're a Christian, then it's like, you're not supposed to question the ways of the Lord, but it's like, I got questions, Lord. Like, I got questions. I got question that needs answering. Like, why? Like, why are we going through this? Like, I don't understand. Like, I thought that if we made peace, I thought that if, they went to the hospital, I thought that if, we prayed hard enough, you said that you would heal them or stuff like that. And it's like, that's not necessarily how that goes, unfortunately. And that's another stage. You just kind of have to have that acknowledgement of, okay, like, I got to accept this. And sometimes you may not always feel that in that moment, but eventually you'll get there. Next stage is depression. I suffered with this really hard when my dad passed away. I just remember when the service and stuff was over, when we made it back to Tennessee, I still didn't go to work because I'm just like, I can't do this. I'm like, I can't sit here and go to work, because here was my thing. They had one time to say something to piss me off, and I'm gonna be like, and I just would have went off like, I just buried my dad, or I just memorialized my father, and y'all can come up here to me with this craziness, with this foolishness. Y'all don't even know. But I was just kind of like, I was in my room, or I was outside on the back porch, and I didn't understand it. Like, I knew it was depression, but it was a point in time to where clothes were just all over the place in my room. Like, my room was just clothes everywhere on the floor, shoes everywhere on the floor. And I'm not the neatest person when it comes to keeping my room like neat and tidy. Like, it's not gonna be spotless all the time, but this was bad. And I remember my friend called me. It was maybe like, it had to have been like a week or so after, and she was checking in on me. And I just remember, I was just like, I can see my floor. And I just remember breaking down, because the fact that I could see my floor was special, because I couldn't see it before. I had just completely stopped caring. And I completely was like, I don't even want to get up and go to work no more, because this is just too much. So I will say, when you're dealing with the depression stage, don't be afraid to lean on other people. And I will say that it's okay to not be strong, because you're not supposed to be. This is something that's heavy. Like, dealing with a loss, it's heavy, and nobody is expecting you to keep it together or to hold it together, and that's okay. Nobody's expecting that of you. But just remember, if you have one or two people around you who are genuine and sincere, lean on those people, because that's going to be crucial to the healing. It is. And the final stage of grief is acceptance. And when it comes to acceptance, it's pretty self-explanatory. You are just like, okay, this person is gone. I will not see them anymore physically, or this is really happening. And it was easier with the acceptance with my grandparents than it was my dad, because even now, I literally will go maybe like 2 or 3 times in a day, and in my mind I'll just be like, he really died on us. He really said peace out. And it's okay. And I will also say this, dark humor will be your best friend, people, okay? Like, that's not a stage grief, but they should be dark humor. And if somebody is around you and they do some dark humor and they tell you it's okay, you can laugh, just give a little chuckle, okay? Like, we okay. That's just how we cope with it. And if you knew my dad, that man was not serious. He was literally the reason why, like, we take nothing serious. And I feel like he would appreciate this dark humor joke. So, shout out to you, daddy. But when it comes to acceptance, like, it's okay to not feel like you really, really fully understand it, because nobody really fully understands death. But to accept it is just kind of like, okay, like, I accept this reality. And even though I am not okay with this person not being here anymore, I've learned to accept it for my well-being to move on day to day. Even if you gotta just say it like, dang, my grandma really died. Well, dang, my granddaddy really died. I say it all the time. And it doesn't make you any less of a person, or doesn't make you crazy. Like none of that. It's just like, okay, they really died. Like, okay, like, I guess this is really happening. You're just like, okay, I guess I gotta deal with it. So the final tidbit I want to touch on is giving grace to others and not being judgmental because they don't grieve the same as you. And that is very important, because a lot of times people, they think that, you know, if we all go through loss in like the same manner, whether like there's loss of a parent, a grandparent, whatever, that we're all gonna react the same way. And that's not true. Like I mentioned earlier, I love dark humor. That is how I cope. Shout out to my dad for giving me the dark humor, because it was really like, it was there when my grandma died, but then when he died, I was just like, there it is. But I remember me and my girlfriend were talking, and I was in my feelings, and she was just like, oh, I'm sorry, baby. And I said, it's okay. You didn't kill him. And she looked at me, and she was, you know, just looking at me in the way of, okay. And then she went on to say, be that as it may, I'm still sorry. And it's fine. I feel like people close to me now, they understand I use dark humor a lot. And if you really know me, you know I use dark humor a lot. That is how I cope, and you can't tell me otherwise when it comes to dark humor. I'm just like, it is what it is, man. And I feel like when we are grieving, people need to understand that we're all going to go through the stages of grief differently, because not everybody's going to hit denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. Some people may accept it then on, and then, you know, go to a denial phase at the end. But everybody's different. And in order to properly be there for someone, you need to understand that. And don't try to push your ideas of, why aren't you boo crying, caught up in a fetal position? Like, girl, if I just want to sit here and eat some ice cream, that's my business. Like, why are you upset that I'm not in a fetal position crying? It's okay. You want me to be in a fetal position? Because that's when it comes down to, like, you want me to be teetering, wanting to go roll off a roof? Like, what's going on? Like, I don't want to do that. And I feel as though when people push that idea of this is what grief should look like, then it becomes less about the person that's grieving and more about the person who's pushing that agenda on them. And to that, I will say, you can't tell anybody how to grieve. We're all going to grieve in our own ways and our different ways. And I even had to learn that with other family members. It's like, everybody's not going to be boohoo crying every time. Some people just might go silent. Some people might just rewatch an old movie that they like, or go to a place that they like. And it's okay. You have to let people grieve how they will and be supportive. And even if you don't agree with it, just be supportive and be genuine in your support. That's really it. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. Feel free to leave a comment. Also, like, subscribe. And if there's anything else you want me to talk about, leave that comment on this video as well. I would definitely make sure I read it and take in all ideas in consideration when it comes to making more conversational videos like this. But I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And my condolences to anybody and everybody who is going through grief, who is suffering loss right now. And as always, thanks for tuning in. Bye.
Give me a run for my money. There was nobody, no one that run me.